going to take you through some sections in the Chumash, going back to the very beginning of Jewish sources. And we'll look at them in detail, looking inside the text a lot. Take a look on page 57. We'll start with verse 10, middle of the page. There was a famine in the land, that's the land of Israel, and Avram descended to Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was severe in the land. And it occurred, as he was about to enter Egypt, he said to his wife Sarai, "See now, I have known that you are a woman of beautiful appearance. And it shall occur, when the Egyptians will see you, they will say, 'This is his wife.' Then they will kill me, but you they will let live. Please say that you are my sister, so that it may go well with me for your sake, and that I may live on account of you." Now let's take this apart piece by piece. First of all, he says in 13, "Say you're my sister," we'll pretend to be brother and sister, "that it may go well with me, and that I may live on account of you." What could he mean by "it's going well with me"? What could that possibly refer to? What is he hoping for? I should live. But the next words are, "and that I may live." So it would be better if "that it go well with me" be something else.
They don't torture him.
Don't torture him. Okay, possibility. Or maybe they'll benefit him in some way, give him gifts or something, or treat him well, right? Then the order is funny, isn't it? Listen, say you're my sister, let's lie, let's have this story, so that two things. First of all, I won't get tortured and I'll receive gifts. That's one thing. Now let's see, there was a second thing. Give me a chance, I'll remember it. Oh yeah, and I'll stay alive also. I mean, it's kind of funny to put staying alive after any other benefits, isn't it? Wouldn't you think staying alive would be the first benefit that would be on your mind? And then, if you're going to be alive, then nice not to be tortured, nice to receive gifts. Right? The order is very funny. But the truth is that the order is only funny if you think of the two items as disconnected items. I'm hoping to get A and B. A is money and B is staying alive. That's very funny. But suppose A is the means to B. Say that you are my sister, so that if they want you, then they will want my agreement. If a husband and wife, there's no way they're going to get agreement. So the only recourse is to kill me. But if we're brother and sister and I'm your protector, you're under my protection, then they'll want my agreement. They aren't totally uncivilized. They're not barbarians, savages. Just that if there's no other way to do it, they'll kill me. But if there's another way to do it, so they'll try to influence me to agree. They'll do well with me, and that's how I will stay alive. That's the scenario by which I'll be able to stay alive. That's one way to understand the words. Now, I tell you an actual comment that is made by feminists. I want you to evaluate it. Abraham is asking Sarah to lie for him. To lie for him. Lying is a moral crime. But that's it, you see. The woman's morality is of no account. Her status is of no account. She is being asked to commit a moral crime for his benefit, because the man is the only one that counts. The woman doesn't count. So her morality is just a throwaway, and that's why he can ask her to lie for him.
It's to save a life.
Okay, number one, if it's the alternative is that he's going to die, then maybe morality would require her to lie to save his life. Is the moral crime of telling a lie equal to death and murder? Probably not. Good. That's one solution, I think. There's another solution, yeah.
They're going. If he says she's my wife, they will take her anyway. They're going to take her.
But what's going to happen to her? If they say they're husband and wife and they kill him, what's going to happen to her? They're going to give her an express flight back to Jerusalem? No, they're going to take her into an Egyptian harem. Will that be good for her? Surely not. He's not asking her to do a favor for him. He's asking her to do a favor for both of them. It's just as good for her as it is for him. She's not sacrificing something for him. The lie that she's going to tell is something that will benefit both of them. But now notice how Abraham puts it. Notice how Abraham says, "See now I've known, it shall occur, they'll kill, this is why they killed me. Please say that you are my sister, that it may go well with me, that I may live on account of you. I claim here you have an exquisite sensitivity." Abraham is asking her to do something that will be good for both of them. But he doesn't put it that way. He puts it as if she's doing him a favor. In other words, he doesn't want to make it sound like he's doing her a favor. He wants it to be presented to her as if she, out of the goodness of her heart and generosity, is doing a favor for him. That puts her in a position of being the, so to speak, the moral superior in this interaction. She's doing a good favor for him. Now, even though in truth it's as good for her, it's good for her as well. I want to show you that Sarah repays this favor. She repays it in exactly the same form. And from this you'll get a picture of how Abraham and Sarah relate to one another. Yeah, take a look at 71, chapter 16. Sarai, Avram's wife, had borne him no children. Look at the way the text defines this. It doesn't say she was barren, she had no children. That's not what it says. What it says is she had borne him no children. That's how she saw it. That's how she understood her position. I have given no children to my husband. She had an Egyptian maidservant whose name was Hagar. Sarai said to Avram, "See now, Hashem has restrained me from bearing." Her theology is straight. She knows that if she hasn't had children, God is the one who has stopped her from having children. Consort now with my maidservant. Have relations with my servant. Perhaps I will be built up through her. Now let's review. What is her motivation here? What's her thought? What's her conception of the situation? I've given my husband no children. Now she's asking him to take another woman. What we would expect is for her to say, "Listen, I've given you no children. I'm willing for you to have relations with another woman so that you can have children." That's really what she wants. She wants him to have children, but she doesn't put it that way. Because if she puts it that way, then when she comes across as saying, "Look how generous I am. Look how invested in you I am. Look how much I'm doing for you. And you probably owe me a debt of gratitude for all I'm doing for you. I'm willing to accept another wife for you so that you can have a child." She doesn't say that. She says, "Do it for me. You'll take another wife. Perhaps I'll be built up through her." She portrays it as if she's only asking for a favor herself. It's exactly the same situation as it was in going down to Egypt at the famine. She's asking him to do something which is certainly good for him. It may also be good for her, but it's certainly good for him. But she portrays it as if it were only a favor for her. Okay? And look how Abraham responds. And Avram heeded the voice of Sarai. Why is he doing this? Because she said so. He never would have dreamt of doing this. He would never have thought of doing this. She said, he has no children. He has no heir. No one to inherit him. That makes no difference. He wouldn't have thought of doing anything. But she said to do it. That's why he's doing it. You see here an exquisite relationship between the two of them. Each one is thinking principally of how to build the other one up and give the other one the support and the sense of importance and generosity that a person needs to feel like a successful and generous person. Are we together? Okay, back to 57. So they're going down to Egypt, and they agree on this plan of saying their brother and sister. There's no but in the Hebrew. It occurred with Avram's coming to Egypt. The Egyptians saw the woman was very beautiful. When the officials of Pharaoh saw her, they lauded her, that's praised her for Pharaoh. But the woman was taken to Pharaoh's house. Maybe you have to negotiate with rich people or officials or princes. Pharaoh doesn't negotiate. He just takes. So the plan that people will want to negotiate with Avram and thereby protect himself and Sarah didn't work. But watch what happens. He treated Avram well for her sake. Pharaoh treated him well. And he acquired sheep, cattle, donkeys, slaves, maidservants, female donkeys, and camels. Yes, if you're going to be the brother-in-law of the king, you can't be a pauper. He came down to Egypt. On the way down, he couldn't even pay rent. Couldn't even pay for the hotels that he stayed in. He was penniless. So he received, but she was taken into the house of Pharaoh. Now, as my son explained to me, he knows these things better than I do, great depth. She was taken to the house of Pharaoh. You're talking about a man who has an empire. You're talking about where a man who was wealthy and certainly a king had a whole harem of women. So she's beautiful, good. So she could be number 61. You know? Add her to the group. Right? This is in preparation for a wedding ceremony. There'll be some kind of ceremony. She's taken into the palace. She's given clothes and instruction. I don't know whether they understood Egyptian or not. She had to be trained in the mores of the palace and so forth and so on. And this goes on for a period of time. During that period of time, Pharaoh provides Abraham with the kind of resources that a person should have if he's going to become a brother-in-law of the king. Then comes the time for the actual wedding. Hashem afflicted Pharaoh along with his household with severe plagues because of the matter of Sarai, the wife of Avram. So there's some kind of plagues that take place. Pharaoh summoned Avram and said, "What is this you have done to me? Why did you not tell me that she is your wife? Why did you say she is my sister so that I would take her as my wife? Now here is your wife, take her and go." Here you have a piece of biblical style which is very, very common. Obviously, somehow Pharaoh knew that was the cause of the plague. How did he know? Plagues happen. They happen all over. They happen randomly to the naked eye. Something must have happened in the context of the plague which led him to understand that it was because Sarai was Avram's wife, and that's why the plague was taking place. At any rate, he understands it, and he responds to it in a quite rational fashion. Right? There are powers that are making this very dangerous and unprofitable. So I'm getting rid of her. Take her and go. And he gave orders to the Egyptian population. Don't touch him. I'm not taking chances with this guy. It's too much there to be worried about. I think this is pretty natural. The one thing that I want to pay attention to here, I'm going to compare it with another passage, is the fact that Pharaoh challenges Avram. He challenges him. He asks questions. Why he did what he did. And Avram does not answer. Avram does not answer. I have to see if we can understand why that is.
How did Pharaoh know it was his wife?
I don't know, but obviously from the fact that that's where he responds, you know, and as I say, this is a question of biblical style, where it doesn't spell out all the details. It leaves you to understand that the details were there, and it wasn't important enough for the text to spell out. Now look at page 91. There's a very similar incident taking place much later, decades later. Chapter 20, the bottom of the page. Avraham journeyed from there to a region of the south, and settled between Kadesh and Shur, and sojourned in Gerar. Gerar is the name of a city. Avram said of Sarah, his wife, "She's my sister." Avimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. God came to Avimelech in a dream by night and said to him, "Behold, you are to die because of the woman you have taken. Moreover, she's a married woman." Now you can imagine Avimelech's response. They lied to me. They lied to me. They cheated me. They're telling me I'm going to die because I took a married woman. I had no clue. I couldn't have known. And that's exactly what he says. Next page. Abimelech had not approached her. So don't read into Abimelech took her and a modern English usage of that word. He had not approached her. So he said, "Oh, my Lord, will you slay a nation even though it's righteous? Did not he himself tell me she's my sister? And she too herself said he is my brother? In the innocence of my heart and integrity of my hands have I done this." I think the reader at this point says, yeah, God's coming on very strong to say he's going to die because he took a married woman when he didn't know and couldn't have known that she was married. God said to him in the dream, "I too knew that it was in the innocence of your heart that you did this." I agree. I agree. "And I too prevented you from sinning against me. That's why I did not permit you to touch her." As you will see, God made him ill so that he couldn't touch her. So, innocence of your heart, you're right. You're right. You have an innocent heart. Integrity of your hands, I ensured that. I made sure your hands would remain with integrity because I made it sure that you wouldn't be able to touch it. Now, return the man's wife, for he's a prophet, and he will pray for you and you will live because you're deathly ill. If he doesn't pray for you, you're not going to live. If you do not return her, be aware that you shall surely die, you and all that is yours. I think the reader here, when I first read it, I was a little uncomfortable. God is coming on very strong. The guy essentially is innocent. He's essentially innocent. They said they're brother and sister. God is threatening him with the death of his whole kingdom because of something he did with innocent heart, which God agrees is an innocent heart. So we'll have to explain this. I'll come back and explain it when we have a little more information under our belt. Abimelech arose the next morning. He summoned all his servants and told them all these things in their ears, and the people were very frightened. And Abimelech summoned Abraham and said to him, now here's the parallel with Pharaoh. What have you done to us? How have I sinned against you that you've brought upon me and my kingdom such great sin? Deeds that ought not to be done have you done to me. That's Abimelech's challenge, just like Pharaoh's challenge, and Abraham does not answer. Just like he didn't answer Pharaoh, doesn't answer Abimelech. Now Abimelech speaks again, separate speech. Abimelech said to Abraham, what did you see that you did such a thing? And now Abraham answers. Okay, first thing to try to understand. Abraham does not answer Pharaoh. He does not answer Abimelech in verse 9, but he does answer Abimelech in verse 10. What difference is there between Abimelech in verse 10, which Abraham will answer, versus Abimelech in verse 9 and Pharaoh, to whom Abraham does not answer?
Was it that the first time it was rhetorical?
That's what it says in the note.
Yes.
Well, I don't know how would we know that it's rhetorical. In Pharaoh's case also it's rhetorical.
It just says in the note.
Is there a difference in attitude, difference in approach, difference in relationship between Pharaoh and Abimelech 9 on the one hand and Abimelech 10 on the other hand?
He says, what have you done to us? To us as a whole. And he says, whatever have us sinned. He speaks in plural, he speaks singular about himself, that he just sinned.
Okay, but I'm asking what's in common between Abimelech and Pharaoh, which would explain why Abraham doesn't answer either time. What attitude are Pharaoh and Abimelech in 9 taking towards Abraham?
That he did it intentionally.
All right, he did it intentionally, but okay, and therefore he is
He's a bad guy.
He's a bad guy. He's a criminal. He's committed crimes. In both cases, they tell him you're a criminal. What about 10? What's Abimelech's attitude in verse 10?
He's not accusing him of anything. He's just trying to get to the bottom of it.
Not accuse him of anything. Indeed, verse 10, Abimelech is expressing a certain amount of respect. What did you see? I know you wouldn't have done it if you didn't see something. You're not a trivial person. You're not just a vicious person. If you did it, you must have seen something. I don't know what you saw. So please tell me what you saw that you did this thing. That's an entirely different attitude. Abraham's position is, if you think you have the moral high ground, if you think you can condemn me, I'm not talking to you, because I'm going to tell you something that's so challenging, that's going to undermine your whole self-conception. If you're not open to hear me, if you're not open to take me seriously, if you think that you can condemn me, you can't hear my message. And therefore I'm not answering. 10 shows an openness, an acknowledgement that Abraham's a serious person, that he has reasons for what he does, an acknowledgement that Abimelech doesn't know the reason, and a desire to know the reason. To that, Abraham is going to answer. And here you learn something very important in life. You don't have to respond to every challenge. You don't have to respond to every challenge. Think carefully about the one who's challenging you, whether he's able to hear you, whether he's able to understand and absorb the message that you want to give him. And if not, just let it go. Just let it go. The response will accomplish nothing. Now, let's see what Abraham's response is, and you'll see why he needs a real openness to communicate this idea. 11. Abraham's answering why he did what he did, meaning that they lied in saying they were brother and sister. I'll tell you why. Because I said, now I'm going to paraphrase. The English translation here is Shakespeare, and it's hard to understand. But the Hebrew says, the only thing they're missing in this place is fear of God, and they'll kill me for my wife. The only thing they're missing in this place is fear of God, and they'll kill me for my wife. Now let's see. If you tell me the only thing that's missing is fear of God, you mean everything else they have. What everything else might that be? What other things do they have that Avram is acknowledging and saying, look, you have A, B, and C, but you're missing fear of God. What could the A, B, and C be? Go back to the top of the page and tell me what they are. How does Avimelech express himself? What terms does he use in addressing God? Righteous. This is a man who knows what righteousness is. Also, integrity. He knows what integrity is. Also, innocence. This is not some savage jumping from rock to rock and hiding in caves. This is a man with a culture. He's got a morality. He has a legal system. He has philosophers. He knows the importance of certain types of legitimate behavior. Abraham says to him, you're right. I know. You have all that. I acknowledge all that. You're only missing fear of God. And because you're missing fear of God, your culture, your civilization will not restrain you. When the chips are down, you'll kill me for my wife. Is that a message that applies to the modern world? Which country?
Germany.
What about Germany, who invented the idea of the final solution? Genocide for the entire Jewish people. Weren't they the spitz, as we say, the height of Western culture? More math, more science, more art, more music, philosophy come from Germany than any other source of Western culture. Did not restrain them. When the tips were down, when they had an agenda, they could decree the annihilation of a whole people. The Torah speaks not only of history, but it speaks to us. It speaks to our lives as well. We have to be very cautious in signing on to a human culture. At any rate, that's the message Abraham has to give. Abraham says, if you think you can condemn me, you have the moral high ground, you can accuse me of being a criminal, you can't hear me. You can't hear this message. That's why I can't give it to you. But if you're open, if you say, what did you see that you did such a thing, then you can hear me, and I can share this insight with you. That's why he doesn't answer Pharaoh, and he doesn't answer Abimelech in 9, he only answers him in 10. Are we together? Okay, but now Abraham is also coming down very hard on Abimelech. If we had said we were a husband and wife, you'd have killed me for my wife. How does he know that? God came down very hard against Abimelech. If you don't give her back, I'm going to blow you up. H-bomb. Abraham says if we had identified as husband and wife, you'd have killed me. I want to show you that the text also indicates that this is true. I mean, we could trust God and Abraham. If they said it, we could trust it as true. But the text also indicates that it's true. Watch and I'll show you.
Well, it says here they were blood relatives. It was his real sister.
I'm coming to that. I haven't read that yet, right? I haven't explained that yet. I'll come back to that in Associa. So, after Avimelech gets up in the morning and he tells his servants, and then he challenges Abraham, and then he asks Abraham, and Abraham gives an answer. And there are two more sentences in the answer, but I'm skipping that for the moment. I'll come back to them. The next page. So Avimelech took flocks and cattle and servants and maidservants and gave to Abraham, and he returned his wife Sarah to him. Very prosaic. Just that's what he did. But I think that there's something here that's astonishing. Let's go back through the morning's activities. In the nighttime, he has a dream. God says to him, she's a married woman. Give her back or I'll destroy you and your whole kingdom. That he has in a dream coming from God. He wakes up in the morning. What's the first thing he does? Calls all his servants and explains the situation. What's the second thing he does? Calls Abraham and says, you're a criminal, you're vicious, you're evil, why did you do this? Abraham is silent. What's the third thing he does? Gee, you must have seen something, must have had some idea. Please share it with me. And Abraham gives him a long speech. What's the fourth thing that he does? He gives him all sorts of gifts. Boy, it's been a very busy morning. Is there anything else on the protocol for this morning? Oh, yes, give back Sarah. Is that how we would have responded? Having a dream like that? You have a dream. God comes to you and says, give her back or you're going to die. Wouldn't the very first thing you did when you woke up was to give her back? Wouldn't you give her back first? No, he's got a long protocol of things to do in the morning, right? And around noontime, it's time for tea. Thinks, oh, yes, one more thing. This man is on a knife's edge. He can't bear to give her back. He can't bear to give her back. So he uses every possible delaying tactic. First of all, he's going to change public policy. He's got to confer with his servants and explain to them how the public policy is going to be changed. And number two, Abraham treated him in a way that's inappropriate. It's going to challenge him, going to get explanation. Abraham's a favorite of God, so certainly I should show favor to the person who's a favorite of God. I give him all sorts of gifts. And then finally, at the last instant when there's nothing left to do and he has to face it, he gives her back. That means after the dream in which God threatens him with destruction, he's on a knife edge of 50-50. What would have happened without the dream? Without the dream to restrain him, Abraham's right. He would have killed Abraham and taken Sarah. And God is right to threaten him with destruction because without the threat, he doesn't make it to 50-50. Now it's to his credit that he makes it. God's threat puts him in a 50-50, and then he makes the right decision. That's to his credit. But God is not exaggerating, and Abraham is not exaggerating. The very fact that he gives her back last indicates the tremendous psychological pressure he was under. Okay? We're together?
Yeah.
Now, go back to one page where we were before.
Ask a question that,
Yeah.
So can we say that Pharaoh had a huge ego or just something else? That he didn't want to give what he belongs to him? Because she belongs to him, right? After that, she took her. He took her.
No, I'm not quite understanding.
You think did Pharaoh have a big ego?
Yeah, but I mean, but why are we asking that question? The two situations are quite parallel. The difference is that Pharaoh didn't ask openly. He didn't say, what did you see that you did such a thing? He only condemned Abraham, and therefore Abraham said, you think you can condemn me as a criminal? Then I can't talk to you because you're not going to hear my message. Other than that, I don't see any difference between the two cases.
Right.
Now, Abraham on 93 goes on to explain more. Look at verse 12. Moreover, she is indeed my sister, my father's daughter, though not my mother's daughter, and she became my wife. We said to my brother and sister, listen, it wasn't the bald-faced lie that you think it is. It actually is some truth in it. Turn back to page 77. Page 77, you have a genealogical table. You see here Terach. Terach had 3 sons, Aram, Haran, and Nahor. Haran had 3 children, one of whom is Sarah. So how are Abraham and Sarah related?
It's his niece.
It's his niece. He's her uncle. It's her father's brother, right? Okay, now, a little Hebrew lesson. The word ben in Hebrew means son, but it also means grandson, great-grandson, many generations you like. We are B'nai Yisrael. Yisrael is the name of Jacob. That's his name. We're Yisrael's Banim, even though there's 30 generations between us and him, 40 generations between us and him. Doesn't matter. Ben works that way. Bas works the same way. Daughter, granddaughter, great-granddaughter, as far down as you like. Okay, who is Sarah's grandfather? Terach, on the page, right? So she could be called Bas Terach. In Hebrew, she could be called Bas Terach. Of course, Bas usually means sister, but it can mean grandsister, it means daughter. But it could mean daughter, granddaughter, great-granddaughter. So we're going to call Sarah Bas Terach. Abraham is Ben Terach. So if she's Bas Terach and he's Ben Terach, then sort of, kind of, with a little flexibility, you could say that they're brother and sister. In Hebrew, you could do that. Okay, why is that relevant to Avimelech, the king of a Philistine city? What is he telling him? Listen, we say we're brother and sister. I want you to know, in my native language, we have flexibilities. We can use daughter meaning granddaughter, and therefore we're sort of... What's that got to do with justifying himself to Avimelech? Here I'll teach you something which is not well known, but it occurs in other places as well. We talk about truth, caring about truth being a value. Usually what that means is, if we're having a conversation and I say something, I have to speak in such a way that the idea you get from me is a true idea. If I say something which leads you to think something that's wrong, then I've misled you. And that's not caring for truth. Truth in communication. In Hebrew it's called gnevestas, stealing somebody else's mind. There's another concern of truth, which is less common, I think, and that is the words I speak should be true words. They're not the same, and they're not even equal. They're not accompany one another. Let's suppose George is convinced that I exaggerate. He lives in Miami, I live in Boston. It's late November and there's been snowfall. He's coming to visit. He's trying to decide whether to bring his boots or not. So he calls me up and he says, how deep is the snow? Now I know that for 4 inches he'll bring his boots and for less he won't. The truth is there are 6 inches of snow on the ground. But George is convinced that I exaggerate. So if I say there are 6 inches on the ground, he's going to say, that's Gottlieb. He's always exaggerating. It's probably 3 inches. I'm not bringing my boots. If I tell him the truth, he's going to get a false idea and not bring his boots. If I tell him there are 8 inches, which is false words, he'll then get the truth that there are 4 inches or 6 inches or more, so 12, 6, and then he'll bring his boots. I'm in a situation now, in speaking to George, where I can't do both. I can't speak both true words and give him a true idea, because he discounts what I say. In Torah ethics, we are concerned about both. We're concerned about not misleading people, and we're also concerned about speaking true words. So, Abraham says to Avimelech, you want to know why I misled you? Because if I hadn't misled you, you'd have killed me. That's enough of a justification for misleading people. I don't have to abstain from misleading people and die, even though Immanuel Kant said so, but Immanuel Kant is wrong. But I want you to know, the next sentence, I want you to know, irrespective of misleading you, I've justified that already, because I saved my life, prevented your murder. But also we care about speaking true words, and I want you to know, in my language, my vocabulary, there's a truth to the words that I spoke. And then he says the third thing, which occurs to most people when they hear this story, especially the way I presented to you this afternoon. You have the case with Pharaoh, where they said they're brother and sister, and there's trouble. You have the case here with Avimelech, they say they're brother and sister, and there's trouble. is this a smart strategy? You know, is this a successful strategy if it leads to trouble? So he says in 13, and so it was when God caused me to wander from my father's house decades ago. I said to her, let this be your kindness which you do for me. To whatever place we come, he saved me, he's my brother. We've done this dozens of times. We got into trouble twice. And twice God saved us from the trouble. But as a policy, this has been a very successful policy because it protected us from this kind of trouble. Usually, when people hear their brother and sister, they don't just send soldiers and take it to the palace. They don't do that. They don't behave that way. And therefore, it has been a successful practice. At any rate, what you learn from here is, number one, as I said at the beginning, don't answer every challenge. Pick your fights. Pick your fights. In particular, when you're challenged, ask yourself whether the person can hear and deal with. And in some cases, you know this. Are you going to have an argument with an anti-Semite? Don't bother. Don't bother. He's not listening. He's just venting his irrational anger. You're going to have an argument with a Christian missionary? Don't bother. They're not listening. They're not there for a discussion. They're just there to put a notch in the belt if they get you, and if not, they'll go out to somebody else. By the way, I'll end with this. I once broke that rule. It was after I came back my first year in Israel. I was living in Boston, moving into a new apartment. It was August. I got a knock on the door. There's a heavy-set fellow there in a hat, jacket, tie, sweating away. And he says to me, I see you have a mezuzah on your door. Could I talk to you? I thought, uh-oh. This is one of those, I said, listen, I don't have time. I don't need this. He says to me, wait, please, a moment. He opens up his briefcase, takes out a Mikros Gedolos. Now, you don't know what that is. Mikros Gedolos is an all-Hebrew copy of the Torah with a dozen commentaries, written in block Hebrew and also in Rashi script Hebrew. He opens it up and he shows me that he can read. He can even read the Rashi script. So somebody trained this guy. So I thought to myself, okay, this isn't just a guy who, got a script in English. This guy made the effort to be able to read and, at least deal with the original. I have to talk to him. I have to respect that. I have to talk to him. So I've invited him in. Now, I come from a non-religious background, so I didn't know anything. I had spent a year in yeshiva, but certainly nothing to do with the things that Christians talk about. He said to me, I want to show you how your books of the prophets prophesy that the founder of Christianity and Christianity. I said, okay, let's try. I had learned Hebrew, so I was good. I could read. I had all my boxes of books on the floor. I didn't even unpack them. I searched through until I found our copies. And then he gave me verse after verse from Jeremiah and Ezekiel and one after the other. I opened them up and I read our commentators. Our commentators, because they lived among Christians, knew about all these arguments, and all the answers were right there in our commentators. I was reading it fresh. And to every one of his questions, commentators had answers, and he had nothing. All of his questions were answered by the commentators. So at the end, I said to him, look, I'm a novice. I don't know anything about this. But you saw all the things that they gave you are not genuine. So I said to him, I'll tell you what Hill said to the one who wanted to convert. Go forth and learn. You see now that what you've been taught is not true. Take the message and find out something. He was a Seventh-day Adventist. Those are the Christians who keep Shabbos on Saturdays instead of Sundays. So from time to time, you will find someone but it's very rare. And that's what I mean by choosing your battles. Abraham teaches us that you don't have to respond to every challenge, and you don't look weak if you don't respond. You don't look weak. Indeed, you look weaker if you respond, and there's a bitter exchange, and then the onlooker says, all right, he's angry, and he's angry, so they're probably both half right and half wrong. If you decline, you don't lose anything. Choose your battles. That's one thing that the text teaches us. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay.